Hello, and welcome to this morning's program and afternoon, depending on where you are. Thank you for joining us. I'm Liz Brailsford, President and CEO of the World Affairs Council of Dallas-Fort Worth. Our program today features Małgorzata Zachara-Szymańska, Associate Professor at the Faculty of International and Political Relations, Jagiellonian University in Poland. Her latest publication, Global Political Leadership in Search of Synergy, explores shifts in global leadership in a globalized system. You can read it for free by following the link on the screen that you see now. She is joined in conversation by Robert Kisak, Associate Professor at Barcelona's Institute of International Studies. They'll be discussing global power games, leadership crises, and how our world is shifting in the 21st century. I can't think of a more pertinent or critical topic in our world today. We have some fellow councils with us today, so I want to give a hearty thanks to the Phoenix Committee on Foreign Relations, Global Santa Fe, the World Affairs Council of Austin, and Jagiellonian University for promoting this webinar. Finally, special thanks to our institutional partners who help us thrive far into the future: AT&T, Dallas Baptist University, Dallas College, Harwood International, Haynes and Boone, Lockheed Martin, NEC Corporation of America, PNC Bank, and Sidley Austin. And then also, if you're not a member of the World Affairs Council, we need you with us. We provide a forum for discussion and fair conversation, and we want you to be part of the conversation because as we know, what happens there matters here, and we need you as a member. Go to our website at dfwworld.org for more information. And while I'm on that note, we are in the middle of our annual fund campaign, and this year's annual fund campaign is in support of civil discourse, something that we need more than ever right now. And so by engaging with the council, you know firsthand how powerful collective curiosity can be. So please help us broaden our impact by donating at dfwworld.org. And now I'm going to pass it over in a moment to our moderator for today, Robert Kisak. Robert is an associate professor at Barcelona's Institute of International Studies and has been at the university since 2008. His research focus on foreign policy of the European Union and international organization is what he does. His book, Pursuing Effective Multilateralism, was one of the first in this field. He is currently leading IBEI's participation in the Horizon 2020 Engage project and within the Jean Monnet networks. Robert, I welcome you. I welcome both of you, and I look forward to this conversation, and I'm going to let you take it away from here. Thanks again to all.
Liz, thank you very much for that warm welcome. So I'm going to let us get straight on with it. It gives me great pleasure to be here with Małgorzata. I've read her book, the new book, Global Political Leadership in Search of Synergy. And what I think we're going to do is simply kick off with the questions, if that's okay, Marga. So let's begin with what I think is probably, given the fact that most people who are listening won't have had the privilege I have, which is to read all 311 pages of it. So maybe, given that it's a very long, detailed book, it's got 4 very substantive chapters in which you cover issues to do with climate change, COVID, the rising global middle class, and the issue of Holocaust remembrance and denial. Would you be able to begin, please, by summing up what is the sort of main message that you would like to give to the audience out there today, and give us an overview briefly of the book that's taken considerable time to read, to write, and it is a very, very interesting read.
Yes, thank you very much. Let me first say that I'm very much honored to be here to connect with World Affairs Council community, and thank you very much for your kind introduction and for reading the book. And yeah, I would like to say that my first observation that gave the idea for this book was that I was reading a lot about the transformation of leadership within business communities, within business sphere, because obviously globalization gave rise to the spread of global commercial institutions. So corporation, they became leviathans of globalization. So this provided a lot of debate about how this changes leadership. Yeah, and I was curious to see the conclusions of the similar discussion about the sphere of politics. Yeah, concerning the sphere of politics, concerning the sphere of public good, because this is something which we are all interested in, and all kind of social institutions underwent this transformation from local to global. And I was very surprised to find out that we know very little about this. Yeah, and this was my starting point, and I started to explore this topic because the way we usually cover global leadership, political leadership, is by telling stories about leaders, which is an obvious, very traditional way, very good way, because it gives us inspiration. The gallery of great leaders is something that can mobilize your own imagination. So this is a good way, but it tells us very little of the connection between structural forces that guide globalization, global processes, and actually how leaders should behave, how they should react, how they should really lead their societies. So that's what this was my major point, and as you said, the book is composed of 4 chapters, and they cover a lot of theoretical analysis about leadership, about what we understand by this term, because this term is a contested one, and leadership is understood here as really an umbrella concept for very different thing. And what I mean by global is that a perspective that covers what's happening between societies, and also what covers what's happening within societies, because this social transformation, that the role of individuals, the fact how power is shifting, from very hierarchically organized structures to more dispersed, fragmented structures of power, how globalization and revolution in communication and transportation gave means, provided means to citizens to make their voice heard. So this is these are phenomena that take part in the leadership activities today. So let me just shortly summarize what I said. So I've covered like 4 different areas of practice, of practical leadership relations, which is one is very much connected with geopolitical transformation, and as you mentioned, this is climate change, and the the story, the history of climate change negotiation is organized around the formal state-to-state, government-to-government negotiations, but also involving international organization, activists, civil society organization. So it gives you, in my view, it creates the, it gives you the sense of the scale of these leadership processes that are taking part within this area. There is a chapter, a case study on COVID-19, because the question about resilience of our societies and of our government structure is a fundamental question we try to answer now, whether our political organizations are prepared really to face the challenges of the global era. And global pandemics provided some answers to that. Yeah. And there is a chapter, I was very much interested in this phenomenon of forming global middle class. Yeah, so individual empowerment, the fact that 40 years ago, at the beginning of this period of hyper-globalization, nearly half of the global population lived under the condition of extreme poverty, and now this changed. Now, global middle class is as numerous as 3.6 billion. We don't know exactly because pandemics, of course, changed the picture here and stopped these processes. But still, this is a huge process that brings consequences that are felt in many sectors of leadership relationships. And my fourth chapter is about Holocaust, is about sense making as a major leadership activity. Yeah, we need leaders to be able to better capture the complexities of the world, to better understand the world. So we need their story and we need their credibility to be able to actually believe in the story they tell us. So for me, this example of Holocaust being increasingly questioned is a fascinating phenomena. And I'm sort of asking the question whether, whether historical amnesia is something we have to face, whether this is a necessary part of the process of how history affects societies.
Thank you, Marga. I think there's so many things there, and I have a number of questions prepared, and I will go back to a number of issues. I think especially the question of resilience and how that links to leadership. Also, the idea of to what extent there is a problem or a concern with levels of participation. Your question about global middle south, so the global middle class really touches on that. Maybe I would like to make an observation about your cases. And I think what's interesting is because the cases on one hand are the chapters that have a case that's a substantial part towards the end, are trying to look at different dimensions of leadership. And at the same time, when I look at it from my perspective, being more interested in sort of international organization and politics and have much less of a knowledge for the literature and business and leadership studies, I was looking at your 4 cases and trying to think about them as cases per se, rather than linking them to the types of insights we can get from leadership. And so when I looked at them, I saw climate is very interesting because it's essentially the idea that we need leadership in order to change behavior, a profound change in human behavior across all 8 billion, which will soon in the next 25 years become 10 billion plus people. We need such an incredible amount of societal transformation, and that's a forward-looking concern. Holocaust remembrance, in a sense, I thought it was to do with actually continuity, because you talk about the importance of remembrance and denial and sense-making, and your chapter is a story, a very detailed analytical story of the way in which it's being eroded. So in that sense, you're not looking about future change, but you're looking at how to create continuity. So when I see those two, I see a variation in terms of what that leadership must do. Continuing on that sort of line of thinking, COVID is we would probably be able to regard it as a parenthesized event. We can now look back, at least at the most serious part, with hindsight. And so that again is a fixed case study. And our final one, the global middle classes, is, as you say, and I'd like to come back to this later, a structural change and transformational change where essentially, if I may paraphrase what the book talks about, it would be to say that the significance of global middle class status is that people have time on their hands to start being politically motivated to do things. And that leadership is therefore the trigger to mobilize. Because when one lives in a degree of low income, of poverty, there's simply no time in the day. One is simply working so hard, be it in an underpaid profession or in a subsistence labor agricultural situation, to have that space to become politically active. So from those perspectives, I wonder, did it occur to you to think of them as four very different ways of seeing the problems of global politics? A future-orientated one for change, a future-orientated one for continuity, one that's completely finished and we can look back at it more scientifically, and one that's about transformation and change, which is not issue related, but it's to do with constituency related.
Yeah, thank you very much for all these reflections. And yeah, my intention was to analyze this phenomena from very different angles and say that there is no such thing like one definition for global political leadership, because politics is in its essence is about distribution of knowledge and redistribution of resources, and there are very different things connected to these processes of distribution. And of course, you have to have vision, you have to have persuasion, you have to have resources of power, you have to be able to negotiate your purposes. So all options, a variety of options are on the table. And what I wanted to show also, what I wanted to manifest, that global political leadership happens not only on the level of transnational organization or transgovernmental, in the transgovernmental space, not only between representatives of state power, but also ordinary people increasingly either shape this sphere, like in a structural way, like in the example of rising global middle class, or individuals that somehow found the leverage to tell their story, to find a way to move things forward, because they have access to communication channels, for example, or they have access to resources, or they have access to global imagination, like rock stars, or people who are experts, and whose knowledge is needed in a moment of crisis. And this is global because I would say that the phrase or the frame that was very important for like connecting all these variables was global public good. Yeah, so my answer for what constitutes global political leadership is idea and efforts and activities oriented at supporting or pursuing global public good, which is again is a very broad concept, but we all instinctively understand what this is about. This is about, you know, our like physical boundaries for development and survival, like climate change, for example, like biodiversity, like water availability, like peace, international peace, or economic stability. We all need these things, and the thing is that you cannot bring them to the world, to, you know, to your region, to your nation, in a unilateral way. Yeah, even if you are superpower, you cannot, you know, make things to be organized because you've got this preeminence in military potential, for example. Yeah, so it just doesn't work like that because of globalization. We could say because of this phase of globalization, because obviously globalization started a long time ago, and even, you know, age of discoveries, age of commerce from 15th century to 18th century. Some people say that this was the first, you know, truly illustration of globalization. But now we live in a moment when these processes that started, they take the dynamics only grows. Yeah, so we have to react in a more decisive way, and probably, you know, our reactions have to be smart in a way that we have to predict consequences of our own actions, because it happens very often, and that what we consider today a long-term strategies or long-term investments are just, you know, consequences we have to bear of something we didn't, you know, think through from the beginning. So there is this saying on Wall Street that long-term investment is a short-term speculation that went terribly wrong. And, you know, some of the processes we can observe around us, political in essence, connected to security, international security, or social coherence, polarization, populism, you name it, they have, they belong to this category.
Thank you. Maybe, and there are definitely some things there I'd like to come back to later, but in order to give the people watching perhaps a kind of summative picture of the work, I would like to know whether you think I am accurately summing up your conclusion, because I thought your conclusion was fairly pessimistic insofar as states are turning inwards rather than turning outwards. These global public goods, which are so central to your analysis, are being less easily found. They're being more contested, and cooperation in order to provide them is increasingly difficult. And one might say that where there is leadership on a political level, it's often, or not often, but we see it frequently, that it's driving mobilization of support towards more national orientated perspectives. And I think everyone in the United States right now watching New Hampshire knows what that's happening, and it's happening in many countries as well. So in that sense, is that an accurate summary? Are you overall pessimistic with what you found from your analysis of your 4 cases and your macro overview of the state of global leadership in the present day?
No, I'm afraid so. Because the paradox, I think, is in the fact that, and this is not Harari's quote. I don't remember whether I quote him in the book or not, but it was striking to me when I've heard this, that we live in probably the best time for the human race, for the best time ever, because more people are dying of eating too much than of eating too little. You're more likely to commit suicide than die of infectious disease. And this level of violence and brutality and terrorism is decreasing, despite of what was felt in the news channels. But overall, our metrics are better than in any other period of history. But yet there is so much pessimism around. Yeah, there is so much uncertainty about what the future brings. Yeah, so we've built this mighty technological empires, and now we're afraid of AI, of the possible harmful influence of these new technologies. So there is a lot of paradoxes connected to the present moment, because we fail to figure out how to organize our political contracts, how to reorganize global political structure so we could respond better for the challenges of globalization. And of course, we can analyze. I'm not brave enough to propose any kind of solutions, because there's many smart people are working on them, and they, until now at least, they seem to be failing. But we can analyze this gap, or reasons for why to be fear of what the future, why to be afraid of what the future brings on many levels. So first of all, there is a sphere of geopolitics. Yes, this is the moment of transition, and we know it. This is a global power shift, and this is something fundamental, because this is the first time in 500 years when actually Western power is being threatened by non-Western power. Yeah, because before we've got British Empire, yeah, and then after the beginning of the 20th century, World War II, Winston Churchill called out for Americans to come and save the old world, and new era of hegemony, as the international relation likes to describe it, begin. But this leadership, American leadership, that lasted that long, was very well legitimized by this act of helping this idea of a community of interest and values. So this transatlantic link was vital for organizing the whole rest. But now, after the rise of the rest, so after after China's rise, we've got a major competitor, and honestly, we don't know the script, yeah, because the Western scripts are known. Because there is a continuation, yeah. We like sort of have always read the same books, or always read the same philosophy, yeah, always read the same. With Chinese, this is not that obvious, and this competitive pressure is growing. So this is one thing. This is refers to what is happening between nations, and there are also fundamental transformation within societies, so within nations, and I would say that crisis of authority is of substance, and then leadership gap in terms of young people being reluctant of taking positions of power that, you know, in consequence, this impact negatively the quality of political class. And then there is also lack of shared story. So we not sure where we're heading. The major story of liberalism and globalization as a transmitter of liberalism is in trouble. Is in trouble in terms of the message, and is in trouble in terms of the medium. And we haven't come up with another story to replace this one.
Thank you. I'm going to do two things. I'm going to first of all put a question to you, which has come in from Raymond Termini, and I'm going to add on to it a reflection of my own. So the first question that has come from a viewer is, what are, or should be, the characteristics of a global leader? And just to link what you've just said to something we were mentioning before, and also to bring in Raymond's sort of point as well, I would ask this. I was wondering, when you have your analytical lens focused on the global middle class, this is a new phenomenon in the sense of people who had never before been in a position to be mobilized. And that links very much to what you've just been saying about the transition between established scripts and new scripts, with the Global South assuming more and more of a prominent role in the global production, consumption of goods, and also the wealth that's associated with it. But in that sense, do you think that in the countries of the Northern Hemisphere, of the global North, countries, perhaps not the United States, but there's still positive population growth, but many European countries, Japan as well, for example, are experiencing quite considerable aging? And therefore, to what extent is leadership necessary to galvanize youth mobilization in terms of a disenfranchised constituent part of every society, which seems to be more and more less interested in the narrative, less interested in politics in general? So maybe that's a different sort of problem, because you're trying to balance the sort of more stable voting, more sort of older population with a younger population that maybe hasn't even voted, despite having 2 or 3, 4 chances in their lifetime. So in that sense, maybe you could also address Raymond's point, which is, what are the good characteristics of a global leader? Because are they to do with galvanizing a global movement, or do we need to begin at the national level and have a strong basis for support and a legitimacy, a mandate to change things that comes from national constituencies through national leaders onto the global stage?
Thank you very much, Ramon, and thanks to you, Robert, for bringing this question. Yeah, this qualities of the global leader, this is a tricky one, because I've mentioned before this authority crisis. Yeah, authority is about making people to do what they wouldn't do otherwise, without coercion. So it's not about domination, it's about persuasion, it's about negotiations, about creating vision that is attractive, so soft power, power of attraction. But also it has a very strong normative component embedded in the concept. Not only, to tell people what to do, but to actually tell people what is the right thing to do. Yeah, what is the right thing to do? And there are many sources of authority. So knowledge, position in the structure, like heroism of some kind of moral authority. But when you think about the actual figure, actual, decision maker, actual leader that could be a role model for the whole globe, so it is really hard to think about one. Yeah, Dalai Lama may be the case, but try to, with his features and philosophies, try to apply this to politics. Very hard. Yeah. So I would say that we still, and this is one of the problems, we still organized our political thinking around this, short-term cycles of local politics, of national politics in the Western world, because this is what we do. This is how the world, the institutional framework is organized, and that's good. That's the essence of democracy. But at the same time, we are trying to come up with solutions for really long-term problems of global change, of global, climate mitigation, of, fighting poverty, and so on and so forth. And like these frameworks, they somehow stand in contradiction, yeah, because in order to win your elections, you have to think in terms of immediate gratification for your constituencies, yeah. So you're not gonna offer, so you're not that, it is not that likely scenario that you're gonna offer them, gratification in 10 years time, for example. Yeah, because this is not attractive. Apart of the fact that the majority of the people, they don't want to hear the truth about reality. Yeah, so that's why we shifted in this era of post-politics in a way, when politics increasingly is not the scene, not that much the scene when we debate vital issues, but it's a part of entertainment. Yeah, it's a part of making yourself as a candidate more and more attractive for the people. So answering shortly for this question, I would say that global leadership in politics can be described as leadership that takes into account that there is this wider world. It exists. It has to be taken into consideration, and it is that we have to react, and we have to apply strategic thinking to what we do on a daily basis. Yeah, and answering your question about youth being reluctant, I just want to show you some data which I find really interesting related to this issue. Very interesting research. I don't know if it's visible. Can you confirm? Yeah, thank you. So when you ask students of very prestigious universities in the United States whether they would like to pursue any kind of political career or public office between now and the time that they will be 50 years old, only 9% say that they would, yeah? And people are simply not that interested in politics, not that interested in this idea of bringing change, of bringing public good, yeah? And this is connected with the wider reality of trust being, the decreasing level of trust. So, for example, in the United States, trust in public institutions is at the lowest level since 1979, and 1979 was the first year the Gallup started to measure this relation of citizens toward institutions, yeah. And millennials, these data tells about millennials because they are already outnumbers baby boomers in the United States, or they are just going to outnumber. So this is the leading class, yeah. So this is the majority of the voters, and we clearly see them withdrawing So yeah, so that's the leadership gap I've mentioned, and it's gonna to be more difficult because of this intergenerational relations, yeah? Because when we observe political class, there are not that many millennials, and you know the good illustration for this pattern can be yeah, American presidential elections. So and age range of the candidates, but this might be extreme case, but still it seems that you know the world has shifted, and expectation of the young people shifted, and there is a big difference between what the older population, middle-aged population wants, and how they engage in institutional politics in order to get what they want, and what the younger people, what they think, and how they don't want to actually engage. Because if you want to, you know, change the rules of the game, you need to be part of the game, and it seems that they prefer not to be part of the game. They prefer to be just silent contestants.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Maria. I wanted to come back in. I had a specific question for you when you referred to the post-politics. So I'm glad you've raised it. And I'll put it in right now. And I think it's more perhaps a tangential point rather than a head-on phrase, sort of not to challenge you on the point, but I wondered if the basic premise, and I think you've articulated it very well just in the last couple of moments, that there's a millennial class, young people are simply not interested in politics. Okay, so where does that leave the leadership issue? And if the leaders are supposed to be identified within politics, we have a problem. I wonder to what extent are we just looking in the wrong place? If you talk to, for example, or if you look to social media, and we're not looking at leadership, but likership, how much do people mobilize, support, become influential, and can send signals about normative questions about what to do and not? There are huge data, and there's lots of evidence that there are people out there, but they're just not in normal politics. So I wonder, do you think that the leadership that you're looking for and you've identified as absent, something similar, not identical, but something similar could be found if you look to social media and saw likership, i.e. that which is to promote perhaps a more short-termist, but less substantive kind of narrative buy-in type of thing. But there's still people out there who are who have followers, and those followers identify people as leaders.
Yeah, thank you very much for this question. Very interesting one. Well, certainly there are people there, and you know, social media is part of the problem, and it might be part of the solution as well. Yeah, because obviously this is a natural environment for many, especially young people, but not all. Yeah, this is natural environment for voters today, and people, you know, designing political campaigns, they just know it, and they use these channels widely. But I'm afraid that the data we have, they indicate that the nature of political communication in social media, in cyberspace in general, is has not the same, like, I would say, quality in the sense of ability to influence the reality. Yeah, these are commentaries. Of course, you can organize a huge political movement like Greta Thunberg, for example. She managed to do this, but still decision-making process is very strongly connected with old formula of institutionalized politics. So unless you're ready to go and fight there, yeah, you can gain attention, you can attract people, you can have your supporters, but you cannot really, like introduce a real change. This is not how social change is being made in my view. So yeah, this is an arena, and we see the potential of these voters, but how to mobilize them, I don't know. However, we recently we had elections in Poland, and actually this was really uplifting to see these long lines of young people, students. I live in a university city, Krakow, so they were waiting to vote for several hours, queuing in front of the voting centers. So maybe there will be a change. The change may be just at the corner. It just we don't we're not able to capture this analytically yet.
Thank you. Well, that's very interesting. I'm going to I want to maybe enlarge a little bit on the point we just made, and I'm also going to bring in a question from Bob Hagan, who's posted one online, and I'm also going to wrap up with one of the sort of central, not criticisms, but a really sort of counterpoint, which I'd be very interested to hear your voice, your opinion on. And we have probably 10 minutes left overall, including a little bit of a final message from Liz. So I'll put all of those things together very succinctly, I hope, and then we'll turn the word over. So I was wondering, this idea that the social media is a place where you may find temporal or short-lived sort of connectivity, and it's not the same as real politics. I noticed in the book that the definition of who is a leader is enormously broad. There were expert scientists in the section on the Holocaust. There were scholar researchers as well. There were superstars. There are media, entrepreneurs, business leaders. And this term, at different parts in the book, you have a very, very broad definition of who is a leader or who is a potential leader. So in that, I wonder whether you've concentrated today your talk on very much on politics and prime ministers, presidents, people who can mobilize people at the ballot box. But your own definition in the book is very, very broad. So in that sense, I don't know why one couldn't also incorporate people who have 20 million followers, whatever sort of place in a sports arena or entertainment arena they are, because they send messages about right and wrong behavior. So that's the first point about fitting into your larger narrative. And I think Bob's question here, or if I may, Bob Hagan, his question is what country, what leader today is showing some of these positive characteristics? So that again is linking us back to your stronger sort of narrative of today's talk, which is to focus on political leadership, even though the book itself is much broader. So those two things are sort of just a kind of rejoinder in the question. I want to pose a kind of a final point to wrap up on. And it is as follows. You talk about it in the book, but I'm sure a lot of the people will have heard about it as well, the importance of resilience. And resilience as being a watchword of the 21st century, the idea essentially that in a world with increasing risk, a world in which there is much less certainty about what will occur, could it be environmentally driven, it could be from political processes and so forth, that it's increasingly important to stop relying on the government and to start relying on more localized or even individual forms of coping mechanisms. And that resilience is therefore a positive, necessary, and important sort of social ability, social capital ability in the 21st century. Does that, the pushing and promotion of resilience, make leadership less important? Because we are training and we are expecting people not to turn to someone else for advice, not to look for some kind of set of answers, but to look from within, or perhaps a smaller community. In that sense, I wonder if our movement towards resilience is undermining your call for more leadership. Very briefly, because there is another question, and you may have seen it. It is as follows. Why does continuous social media use to lead to either stable or unstable mental health in millennials worldwide? Influences, followers, realities of cyber globalization. Okay, that's a very broad question to do with sort of an open-ended assessment of how perhaps media is not simply media, but it's perhaps, I have an actual answer to this, which I think is the fact that you can never, ever be outside of the loop of information. So in previous times, one could be blissfully ignorant of what one was not missing out on. If you were excluded without your knowledge. But on many social media functions, exclusion is something which you are included in. You are an outsider because you are purposely not put into this sort of the information or the media posting that has left you out. So you're permanently aware of being both an outsider and an insider of being an outsider. So it's a very interesting circle. But anyway, let's push that on one side. We have Bob's question, which country to do well? My major point is resilience going to be making leadership harder. Over to you, Margaret, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. So let me connect the first question with the last one. So the one about resilience and the one about leadership and politics, formal, not formal politics. So yeah, I think my point about institutionalized politics referred to the way we could mobilize, young population to better express their needs under the condition of, aging populations of Europe, not that much United States, but Europe. So you need to find a channel of transmission. Yeah, you need to find but still it has to be connected to formal politics, but it is not to say that leadership is limited to politics, obviously, because at the essence of the whole concept is influence. Of course, it is connected with power, but there are different kind of powers. And yeah, this is the book which I like. Moses' name, The End of Power, and he actually describes how power changed and how, even with full reservoirs of this traditional power like military economy, you're not always able to meet your meet your aims. But yeah, leadership takes place on every level of social relations. This is a deeply humanistic phenomenon. Yeah. So resilience is I would say that you build resilience within societies with leadership, not without it. They are not, in contradiction. So you need more leadership. You need more, it's not that there's one leader, the structure of leadership relations, not that the leader always lead followers and there are people who follow. It depends on the situation. So, there is a lot of exchange, and when you find yourself in a situation when your profile applies better, you take a lead, but then after in other situation you follow. We've got many identities, so we can find many spaces to exercise our leadership. So that's states, yeah, because so yeah, but I'll answer the question about actual leaders around. I wouldn't indicate one, but I would say that what is being increasingly important in part of this resilience is ability to cooperate and form alliances. Yeah, and what happened after Russian aggression of Ukraine? So how Ukraine and President Zelensky actually, resisted the aggression, and how the Western world, especially the United States, especially Biden administration, reacted by the solidarity, creating this solidarity with other Western government. That was an impressive moment and a moment of leadership to me.
Well, thank you very much for this important conversation. Like I said in the beginning, I just can't think of a more critical topic than global leadership right now. So we really appreciate both of your insights and expertise. Thank you for joining us from overseas, and community members, thank you for your questions and for engaging with the Council. We will see you next time, and thanks again to all.